from the Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses. You left an answer phone message on our phone, so just calling back. Have I got the right number?
Yes. Which Kingdom Hall?
In Exeter.
Yes. Which congregation? Because I know there's two there, isn't there? Pennsylvania and...
Yeah, there's 3 congregations there at the moment now. So I'm from Hevertree congregation.
Hevertree, yes, thank you. I was given literature at one of the carts.
Right, okay, yeah.
I really wanted to know what... I mean, I was told to go to jw.org and go to the website, which I've done, but can you actually sort of open the Bible to prove your doctrines without your literature or your website?
Yes. I mean, part of what we use is we use the literature as a tool to help us learn from the Bible, but primarily what we use is the Bible. So the literature and the website is more to assist us, if you understand what I mean.
Right, I see. I'm really curious about Jesus. I would believe that Jesus has 2 natures, that he's fully Yahweh God. He shares his Father's nature. Obviously, Jesus is not the Father. He prays to the Father. He's praying to another person. He's praying to somebody other than himself. But I would personally believe that Jesus both shares his Father's nature, so he's deity, he's divine, but I would also believe that from his birth onwards, from Bethlehem onwards, he also has a human nature. So some verses in Scripture refer to Jesus as God. For instance, Jesus is the creator, which only Yahweh, Jehovah, can do. But other verses talk about Jesus' humanity. That's what really puzzled me when I looked at your literature. Can you explain what your beliefs are, and can they be proven from the Bible? Thank you.
Yeah, that's some really interesting questions. I think to help answer those questions, I think that the best thing would be to have a face-to-face conversation about it. Is that something you'd be up for?
You've got an opportunity now. I'm all ears. I'm willing to listen, but obviously my time is valuable. I want to know whether you know what you're talking about. So, fire away. I'm all ears. I'm willing to listen. If you wish to speak again, I guess I could speak on Zoom, if that's of any help to you. But could you? What is your position on Jesus Christ, and can this be proven from the Bible, not from your website or your literature? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. To be honest, to quote all the scriptures off the top of my head, it can be quite difficult. But I try my best from what I can from my memory. But just bear with me a second.
Yes, sure.
I don't even need to have a Bible in front of me. 1 second.
I think the first thing to do is to know what is your position, and what is.
So we believe Jesus had a heavenly existence before he came to the earth. So, as in he wasn't a human. So, just to sort of back that up by scripture, just bear with me.
Yes, of course.
So John chapter 8 and verse 58. So do you have a Bible handy by chance?
I'm just turning there now.
So actually it's the whole section really to get the context of it. So Jesus was speaking with let me have a look. But just bear with me. Yes, so Jesus was speaking with the Pharisees at that time. So obviously the Pharisees share the same views as Jesus, but he explained to them in verse 57 there of chapter 8. Did you have that in front of you by chance?
Yes.
So obviously Jesus, as you said, was a human at that point, and it said, so the Jews said to him, "You're not over 50 years old, yet you still have seen Abraham." So Jesus made the claim, obviously, in 58. He said, "Most truly I say to you, before Abraham came into existence, I have been."
No, it doesn't say no. That's not accurate. It's I am. It's the present tense in the Greek. It's I am. 3 times in John 8, Jesus says I am, and he's referring back to Exodus 3:14, where all New Testament quotes from the Old Testament are from the Greek Septuagint. At Exodus 3:14, Moses says to God, who appears before him in the burning bush, who are you? What is your name? And the reply he gets is ego eimi hoon, I am that I am. So in John 8:24, John 8:28 and John 8:58, right, Jesus appeals and says that he is the one who appeared to Moses at the burning bush, that he is the I am. No Greek scholar has ever translated ego eimi as I have been. Could you name one scholar, one PhD in biblical Greek, who has ever translated it that way?
I'm afraid my knowledge of the actual specific translation in Greek is, obviously I'm not myself a Greek scholar, but just bear with me a second.
Yes, of course.
I'm always open to find out what other translations say on the same verse. So, I mean, when you look at the actual, the conversation, chapter 8 of John, basically, hold on, let me just look at the context is very important, obviously, when it comes to the verses.
Yes, of course.
So what is the wording that you understand in verse 58, can I say, from the translation you're using? Would you be kind of just to repeat that? Sorry.
The Greek is ego eimi, I am, and it's translated that in John 8:24, John 8:28, and John 8:58.
Okay, so what would be the, from your understanding of that, the whole sentence translated into English? So where it says Jesus said to them, and then what does your translation say? Can I ask?
New King James Version, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am.
Okay, so what do you think was the point that Jesus was trying to make there with the Pharisees? I mean, how do you understand that? Just trying to understand your reasoning on it.
I've told you, all quotations in the New Testament are from the Greek Septuagint, not directly from the Hebrew. And here, Jesus is alluding to the fact that he is the one who appeared to Moses at the burning bush. When Moses says, what is your name? The answer he got back was ego eimi hoon, I am that I am. I'm quoting from the Septuagint. And ego eimi, all right, is the first part of that sentence, ego eimi hoon. It's shortened to ego eimi, and it's applied to Jesus at John 8:24, John 8:28, John 8:58, where Jesus says that he is the I am who appeared to Moses at the burning bush.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, maybe I'm not quite clear on my question. Sorry. What I'm trying to understand is, so obviously with the Pharisees, they're questioning, Jesus, that they weren't putting faith in him in those verses. So really, when what was Jesus' response to the Pharisees? If you were to summarize it, what would you say he was trying to tell them?
Yeah. Well, my Bible's just fallen on the floor as I've tried to get some.
Yeah, that's all right. No
as I tried to get some books that I've got, or rather scans of books that I've got. Jesus is saying that in John 8:57, as you read, then the Jews said to him, you are not yet 50 years old, and yet you have seen Abraham. Okay, so how can Jesus have seen Abraham, who lived, I think, about 1,500 years before? You're not even 50 years old, Jesus, okay? Then in verse 58, Jesus said to them, most assuredly I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. So he's saying that he saw Abraham because he's referring to his deity, not to his humanity, is the eternal Yahweh God, or Jehovah as you call him, who appeared to Moses out of the burning bush. It has to be the Son, not the Father, who spoke to did I say Moses? Yeah.
Don't worry, I understand what you meant.
Yeah. It has to be the Son, not the Father, who appeared to Moses, because in John 5:37, I'll slow down.
Yeah.
And the Father himself who sent me has testified of me. You have neither heard his voice at any time nor seen his form. John 5:37. So no one has heard the Father's voice, and no one has seen the Father's form. But we're told that Moses heard the voice of Yahweh God, Jehovah, and Jacob wrestled with God. So it couldn't have been the Father. It must have been the Son in both cases. And Jesus is saying in John 8:58,
of the Father, yeah.
And Jesus is saying in John 8:58 that he is the eternal I am. One thing that puzzles me, and I found the references now, the New World Translation has misinterpreted John 8:58 from the beginning, but is given different explanations as to why it should be translated I have been and not I am. So in the 1950 edition of the Greek scriptures, they translated it as before Abraham came into existence I have been, and there's an asterisk, and if you look at the asterisk at the bottom of the page, I have been, ego eimi, properly rendered in the perfect indefinite tense. So they explain that I have been is the perfect indefinite tense in the 1950 Greek scriptures. I have a copy of that. I've never been a Jehovah's Witness, but I've got a copy of that.
Yeah, don't worry.
In the 1960 very wide green Bible that you published, and I've got a copy of that too, page 3108, for John 8:58, it's translated as I have been. There's another asterisk, and now the tense, it's a different Greek tense, is explained. I have been equals ego eimi after the aorist infinitive clause. So in 1950, it's the perfect indefinite tense, which doesn't exist in any language. But in 1960, the tense is changed, the explanation is changed to the aorist infinitive clause. And then in the purple interlinear, I don't know how the blue reads, I need to look at that perhaps, but the purple interlinear, published in 1969, at John 8:58, says that ego eimi is in the perfect tense. So there's 3 different Greek tenses given to explain your mistranslation at John 8:58. The perfect indefinite tense in 1950, which doesn't exist in any language. It was just invented by the Watchtower to explain away I have been. When that was refuted by scholars, they changed it to the aorist infinitive, and it's not an aorist infinitive. So in 1969, they changed it again to the perfect tense. Now, I put it to you, there are no scholars who've ever worked on your New World Translation. You don't have one.
I find very interesting what the verses you're quoting the information. To be honest, with our translation, it's obviously when you take off a literal translation, it uses very modern English. So obviously it's designed with understanding in mind. So some obviously Bible translations go with complete literal translation, and others go with paraphrasing. Well, our translation tries to use a balance between a literal translation where possible, but where the understanding could be confused, by, for example, some literal translations of the original Hebrew and Greek would be very confusing to the average person, the common person who doesn't understand expressions that are in in speech today. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I have actually found the Kingdom Interlinear Translation, the second edition, the blue edition, and it changes the tense at John 8:58 yet again. It changes it from the perfect in the first purple edition to the perfect indicative. So you have 4 different explanations of the Greek, the first of which doesn't exist in any language. Now, could you name one scholar and his academic credentials, where he got his PhD in Greek or Hebrew, who's worked on the New World Translation, please?
No, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to do that. To be honest, though, I mean, just when I look at the King James Version of the Bible, the explanation to what your question was to begin with, where you asked, what was Jesus's, what was his existence before he came to the earth? To be honest, I'm not a scholar, so I can't explain all the differences of the grammar and the Greek, but the King James actually does explain as well that before Abraham, Jesus was in existence. So I mean, your original question was what is our stand like on?
Yes.
So I never actually got to really explain it, sorry, because of my
right,
a little bit.
Right.
But sorry, just started something on my phone.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, we understand Jesus and Jehovah to be separate entities, as in separate. Jehovah created Jesus directly. He is the firstborn of all creation. Jesus, that being Jesus. And Jesus lived in heaven alongside Jehovah and used Jesus as the master worker, who was involved in creating all of creation. And obviously Jesus came down to the earth under the instruction of Jehovah. Jehovah says Jesus didn't do his own. He didn't do his own will, but the will of his Father, and came to the earth to make reconciliation for the sins of man. So as when he was on the earth, we believe he was a real flesh and blood human. He came to the earth. He was born. Mm-hmm. As far as the accounts, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, he came to the earth as a real real baby, real child, completely with facing the same sort of trials and issues that that's common to man. But the difference being that he came to the earth as a perfect human to give his life in exchange for what was lost for Adam and Eve.
So what
Adam?
So what is not very clear. So what was Jesus before he came to this earth? Was he an angel?
Yeah, a heavenly creature.
And when he came to this earth, did he stop being a heavenly creature, or did he continue to be a heavenly creature at the same time that he took on a human nature?
He became a human when his life force was transferred from heaven down to the earth. I mean, if you have a look at...
You're not answering my question. Did he stop being an angel when he took on a human nature?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Could I just... I think the important thing is to actually understand what you believe, which I'm trying to do, and what I believe. But before I do that, could I just point out one thing about your New World Translation? The head translator of the 1950 and the 1960 New World Translation, so that's the Greek scriptures and then the whole Bible, was Fred W. Franz. There was a 5-man translation committee. Ganges, who was a Greek national, but wasn't trained in ancient Greek. Schroeder, Nathan Homer-Knorr, but the head translator was Franz. There was another person, I forget his name. Franz was the head translator. Under oath in court in Scotland in 1954, Franz travelled to Scotland to defend a Jehovah's Witness who was put on trial for refusing to serve in the British military he claimed to be a pacifist, and he was going to go to prison for not serving in the military. So Franz went to Scotland to defend him. And under oath in this trial, the Douglas Walsh trial it's called, I've got the court transcript. On page 7, under cross-examination, Fred W. Franz is asked, question, this is by the prosecution barrister, I think you are able to read and follow the Bible in Hebrew, Greek, Latin, Spanish, Portuguese, German and French. Answer from Franz, yes. So Franz claimed that he could speak Hebrew, yes? You understand?
Yeah.
But then on page 102 of the court transcript, much later on, the prosecution barrister handed Franz a Bible, probably a King James Bible, we don't know what sort of Bible, and he asked him to translate a passage from Genesis from English into Hebrew aloud for the court. In fact, it was the first verse in the Bible that mentions Jehovah. So the prosecution barrister said, I think we come to the name Jehovah in the 4th verse, don't we, of the 2nd chapter of Genesis, page 34. Answer from Franz, yes. Barrister, question, you yourself read and speak Hebrew, do you? Answer from Franz, I do not speak Hebrew. Question, you do not? Answer, no. Question, can you yourself translate that into Hebrew? Answer from Franz, which? Question from the barrister, that 4th verse of the 2nd chapter of Genesis. Answer from Franz, you mean here? Question, yes. Answer from Franz, no. I won't attempt, and then on the next page, page 103, to do that. So he perjured himself in court. He said he spoke Hebrew on page 7 of the court transcript, but when tested and asked to translate a passage aloud for the court, he said he couldn't possibly do that. He didn't speak Hebrew, and that's the head translator of your New World Translation.
Okay, thank you for that information. So may I ask, what's your purpose of? I mean, is it you want to know more about the Bible, or what's kind of your overall goal?
Yeah, I'd like to focus more on who Jesus is. As I said, my position is that I believe that Jesus is the Son of the Father. He is not the Father, so when he's praying, he's not praying to himself, he's praying to somebody other than himself. I believe that Christ eternally shares his Father's nature, because I believe Yahweh God is eternally, personally, and distinctly the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. But I believe that 2,000 years ago, Jesus Christ took on a human nature, and he became a man, and he still retains that humanity. I'm trying to understand your position. You seem to say that Jesus was a created being, he was an angel. I think you said he was the firstborn, which doesn't mean created, by the way, in Colossians 1:15. But I'd like to see you prove that, if you can prove it. And then I think you said he gave up being an angel and became a human being. When he died, did he give up his humanity and become an angel again?
Well, he was in the belly of the beast, so to speak, as he gave the example of Jonah, for 3 days, in effect, not in existence. Because...
Hang on, you're saying Jesus was not in existence for 3 days?
Well, except in God's memory.
So, hang on, you're saying that when he died, he was not in existence for 3 days? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, where do you think... I mean, that'd be interesting to hear your view. Where do you think Jesus... Obviously, it was 3 days after his death. He was resurrected. I mean, when he he died, did he literally die, or what's your?
You need to define what death actually is. In order to explain did Jesus die, you need to define what death is. Human beings have two parts to their nature. We have a human physical body. We have a human soul or spirit. Many in the evangelical field, because of the influence of what's called dispensationalism, are what's called trichotomists. They believe that human beings have three parts to our nature. a separate body, a separate soul, a separate spirit. But that's a tiny, minor view in Christianity. It's only been popularized in the last century and a half due to American evangelicalism, which is dispensational. So I hold to the traditional position held by Catholics and Protestants, the dichotomist position that human beings have two parts to our nature. We have a human body, and then we have a human soul or spirit. The terms are to some extent interchangeable. Death is simply where the human body ceases to function and the soul or spirit separates from the body. That's how I would define death.
Okay, well, the definition I go for really is, when you think of what Jesus said about describing it, obviously Jesus, having a pre-heavenly existence, had far superior knowledge and intellect to any human being. But instead of going into, what some people overcomplicate the subject and have all kinds of ideas of, you go to this place after 10 days and you got all the kind of purgatory and all the...
No, mate, stop. Yeah, I am not here to discuss what Billy Bob has told you or some Catholic priest has told you. I'm here to discuss what I believe.
Sorry, I was explaining myself.
Right, well, you're talking about purgatory, which you don't believe in and I don't believe in.
No, but I'm just trying to explain a bit of context. So
the context is related to what I believe, and the context is related to what you believe. If you start bringing third parties in, for instance, if I talked about, there is the prophet Joseph Smith, and Joseph Smith had the golden plate, and then if I try to imply that you believe that Joseph Smith is a prophet, it just complicates the discussion. We can't actually have a two-way conversation if we each bring in third parties and start flinging them at the other person, asking the other person to somehow prove that. I'm not going to be proving purgatory because I don't believe in purgatory. And if I brought in the prophet Joseph Smith and asked you to prove Joseph Smith and the golden plates, that would not be fair on you. You said that Christ ceased to exist for 3 days.
If you don't let me speak, I'm going to have to hang up. I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay.
Can you let me speak?
Yes.
You were just telling me about the different beliefs that people have and different differences.
Yeah.
All I wanted to say was purgatory. Okay. All I want to say is simply that we believe the soul is what Jesus said. You fall asleep when you die. Right. I'm sorry, but I don't feel like this conversation is very productive. I'm going to have to go, I'm afraid.
Well, I wanted to address your comment that Jesus ceased to exist for 3 days. I wanted to go to 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 18 and 19, which talks about Christ going and preaching to the spirits in prison after his death. So obviously, after Christ died, he didn't cease to exist. He went and preached. Whatever that means, it possibly means proclaim his victory to the spirits in prison, whether they're the dead faithful souls in Christ or whether they're the demons and Satan. I don't have enough Bible knowledge to explain that. But let me show you that Christ continued to exist after his death. 1 Peter 3:18, for Christ also suffered once for sins, the just for the unjust, that he might bring us to God, being put to death in the flesh, but made alive in the spirit, by whom, that's the spirit, he also went and preached to the spirits in prison. So the spirits that are kept in Tartarus, possibly, I'm not an expert, this is a very complicated verse, but whether it's talking about Tartarus, whether it's talking about just dead saints in general, or the demons in Tartarus, I don't know. But it's saying that after he died, he went and proclaimed his victory to these spirits, whoever they are, in prison, wherever that is. So Christ did something after his death. He didn't cease to exist, sir.
To be honest, I think the method we use for studying the Bible is looking between, we use different verses to try and explain others. The thing is, with a lot of scriptures, you can kind of prove anything if things sometimes are taken out of context. So you have, for myself, it's just my own view. Everyone's entitled to their own view, but I think it's Jesus' explanation is quite clear on that, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to go
on what? Christ's
death,
explanation is clear on what and where? Where do I have to go to see this clear explanation?
Sorry, excuse me?
You said Christ's explanation is clear. His explanation is clear on what? You're not being precise. What is his explanation clear on, and which verse do I have to go to read this clear explanation? You said Christ ceased to exist for 3 days. Christ said to the thief on the cross, Luke 23:43. See, I actually quote the verse, unlike you. And Jesus said to him, "Assuredly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise."
Can you let me speak, please? Otherwise, we'll have to go.
Why? Are you afraid?
Well, it's not a productive conversation. You obviously just want to, conflict with what my views are. I mean, so I'm sorry.
Well, why can't you defend them? Why can't you defend them? People enjoy listening. Oh, he's hung up. He's hung up. Oh, what a shame. What a real shame. I really wanted to talk to this guy.